Hi, today's movie is Christmas Evil, the 1980 psychological horror film written and directed by Lewis Jackson and starring Brandon Maggart. In the 1940s, a young boy named Harry accidentally sees his mother and Santa in a compromising position, and in great distress he runs upstairs and cuts himself. In 1980, and now an adult, Harry remains fixated on Santa Claus and voyeuristically spies on local children, keeping detailed records of who's been good and who's been bad. Increasingly consumed by what he sees as the terrible behavior around him, Harry suffers a psychotic break and assumes the identity of Santa, with the intention of rewarding the good and punishing the bad. But as Harry grows increasingly unhinged, his punishments escalate into a series of terrible murders. I really wasn't sure what to expect from Christmas Evil. I had thought it might be a kind of low-budget Christmas-themed slasher, but I found Christmas Evil an interesting and surprising film. It's less of a slasher and more of a psychological portrait of a very damaged and isolated man. This film makes great use of the psychoanalytic idea of the primal scene, where a child accidentally views a sexual incident that causes terrible psychic trauma. In Harry's case, he's developmentally stuck in this moment forever, stuck in a childhood state of secretly watching, stuck on this fixation with Santa, and an arrested idea of morality and justice. And he remains fixated with the behavior of other children. What makes his character so sad is that no one sees this. His life is just so private, and so is his mental state. No one ever visits his home and sees the very disturbing perennial Christmas display he has. People around Harry just think of him as an oddball or even an idiot, and no one ever delves any deeper, so his neuroses just fester away. Brandon Maggart gives a complex performance that allows us into the mind of this very damaged and very disturbed man. He is not a monster, he's more like a really damaged child who's just never progressed. Harry is an anti-hero that we can't entirely sympathize with, but we can understand him. The film's greatest strength is that it keeps its action so grounded in reality. Harry is just an ordinary guy, he's not a supernatural monster, and that is what makes this film so creepy. This guy could be anybody's neighbor or co-worker. What I really liked about this film was its originality and its willingness to delve into the darker side of our ideas around Christmas and Santa. Harry is so deeply and seriously into the idea of Santa that he actually raises ideas about Santa that I'd never thought about before. And that is, in particular, the punishing side of Santa's role. This is really the shadow side of Santa that we don't normally see or think about in our culture. Harry takes the punishing side as seriously as he does the rewards. And he seems to be motivated by this very childlike idea that there is or should be justice for every wrong that happens in the world. Now, I really love the film Bad Santa, but to me, Christmas Evil seems like a much darker and even perhaps a more realistic take on a similar idea. I was really not expecting the psychological dimensions that Lewis Jackson brought to this film, and I was very impressed by them. Christmas Evil is also aided by a very atmospheric and effective soundtrack. If I have one minor qualm with this film, it's that in its final act, the very solid realism that it cultivates throughout does seem to crack a little bit. For instance, in the neighborhood mob carrying flaming torches, I just kept thinking, well, they could have carried regular electric battery-powered torches. And also in the final shot of the movie, which I won't describe for fear of spoilers, but perhaps what the director is trying to suggest at this point is that Harry's grip on reality is permanently and irrevocably broken. And I did wonder if this almost fairy tale or mythological type imagery was meant to be a product of Harry's broken mind. I would highly recommend Christmas Evil if you're in the mood for some Christmas-themed horror with a dark and very psychological edge. For a low-budget film, this really left me with a lot to think about, and I thought it was actually quite fascinating. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope I'll see you next time. Bye.